Hello, you are listening to the Omni Talk Fast Five, brought to you in partnership with the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, Firework, SPS Commerce, and Sezzle.
Lululemon is reportedly looking to sell Mirror, the fitness startup it purchased in 2020 for, believe it or not, $500 million.
Yeah.
According to Bloomberg, Mirror's hardware sales have missed Lululemon's projections and took in almost too crazy to believe $443 million impairment charge on the Mirror business in the fourth quarter. Quote, "We don't comment on rumors or speculation," a representative for Lululemon said in a statement. As previously announced, we are shifting the focus of Lululemon Studio from a hardware-centric offering to one that is also focused on digital app-based services going forward. The work is underway, and our strategy will enable us to create long-term value and build a larger community of guests with a deeper connection to Lululemon, end quote. So, Truett, you kind of teased it up before, but my question is pretty frank on this, too. What the hell went wrong here? And did Lululemon really just spend $500 million on what sounds like the 2020 equivalent of the Shake Weight or the Ab Roller Plus?
I mean, the ab roller at least did some work. Like, you actually got some abs from that. There was hardware.
You know, all of those are sitting unused, though, in somebody's like garage or storage unit.
Well, I think the only thing worse than losing $250 million is losing $500 million. So we're kind of creatively growing here in terms
We're
of
raising the
losses.
bar.
I think there were several issues with this. I think one is very clearly purchased this at the peak of the market, with Peloton down 90% since about the similar time frame in terms of their market cap. This idea that pandemic-related behaviors, and we've seen this in almost every instance, were going to hold true post-pandemic, have just been unwound, and ultimately those expectations have failed. I think the second thing is, why did Lululemon need this to add a lifestyle, or services to the lifestyle brand, which I really do think they are one of the few lifestyle brands. Amazing brand, very loyal following. What they pivoted doing now is classes and other features within their app, which can be done, I think, fairly lightweight, more programming. Don't need the hardware, don't need all the IP that you're buying from something like Mirror. You could have done that, they could have done that on their own, despite of it. And then, the last thing, I think it does go back to what we just described, which is, what is the intent? Why do you need this asset to achieve your corporate goals? And in this instance, I think it was probably leaning in just too much in terms of what the trajectory of the business was at the time versus how does this really fit in with our strategic objectives. And so it was a failure from the start. They're paying the price for it. And even, Lululemon will continue to be successful. $500 million is a pretty breathtaking amount of money to lose in such a short amount of time for a company of their size.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. And you brought up an interesting point too. You were talking to me yesterday. We were walking to get a burrito for those that are interested.
Oh God, yeah.
You were talking to me about some of the dynamics of the actual physical substrate of the hardware they purchased in relation to, say, Peloton or Tonal. Like, what was your take there? I thought that was a really interesting point you were bringing up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Truett said it really well. Like, I think it was a total like land grab. Like, the pandemic was happening. It was like people were shifting to in like working out in their homes, and so this was an acquisition that seemed right for the picking for Lululemon at that time. But the difference between Mirror and what essentially makes it obsolete right now is that there's no hardware, and there's no reason that Tonal or Hydro or any of the other.
It's not a piece of equipment, you mean, right? Is that what you mean?
A piece of a hardware, yeah. Like,
it's not a piece of gym equipment,
right?
Functionally,
Right.
It's
It's a mirror.
Yeah, it's just a mirror. Yeah.
Like, Tonal has other components to it that fold into the wall that allow you, like, you have the Peloton bike or tread, like you have Hydro, the rowing machine, all these things. You actually have something that you are able to do. You can work out with it even if you're not using the programming.
It's cool.
And now you just have a screen that's in your house that basically has no utilization, or actually is just better utilized on your phone when and where the consumer wants to exercise. So to me, it's like the equivalent of the laser disc. We're gonna look back on Mirror and be like, what did we create that for? Like, what was the purpose of that? Nothing at all. And I think, like we talked about in the last story with Walmart and Bonobos, you can't just purchase something, drop it in your store, and expect the Lululemon consumer, especially in this case, to just be like, oh yeah, I'm jumping on. I want to know what Mirror is. Like, you have to have a better strategic plan, I think, for how you're going to bring that to your audience.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I personally liked this acquisition when I first heard about it, but I think that's the point I missed, which is the point you're bringing up is like, what is the actual hardware substrate that you're buying relative to the overall industry and how the industry is moving? So it's
like the kiosk. Like why are you having kiosks in store when you could just use your mobile phone?
Right, exactly. Jeff, what do you think? Anything to add here?
Yeah, look, I think they found out some of the themes that you hit on. Hardware, in-home workout hardware is hard. It is really
that's hard too, right? Yeah, exactly.
It is really difficult to win in that space.
Yeah.
And to Ann's point, I think this business just goes away. I don't actually think they sell. I think this business is obsolete and one that they're going to have a hard time monetizing anything from. But yeah, I'll take it just a hockey analogy. I think, look, skate to where the puck is supposed to be, not where the puck is. And I think they skated to where the puck was at the moment for COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. The other thing I would add too is I think there's two parts of this story actually in retrospect. Did they just buy the wrong thing? Which it sounds like we could argue, yes, it seems like they did. Then I would also argue that they tried to implement it the wrong way too. So had they even bought the right thing, they implemented it the wrong way too, which is your point, Ann. Like you can't just drop this into a store amongst people shopping for apparel and think it's going to work. You can't just build it and hear people come.
Right.
You need to still have a direct sales approach with this. And it seems like they didn't contemplate that at all, or the resources that are going to be required to make that successful as well, especially during the pandemic when this thing should have been going gangbusters too, if it was a good idea. So I think there's two lessons here. Like, what are you buying? And then how are you planning to incorporate it into your mainline business? Is fundamental to think about as well.
And I just kind of feel for them. Like the pandemic was crazy and everybody was trying to figure something out real quick.
Yeah, obviously from the last two stories.
But anyway,